And time to introduce our newest segment, which is Goodcock, Babcock. Roll it.
It's way easier to go through life and never say nothing. Wear beige and no one even knows you're alive.
It's time for Goodcock, Babcock.
And you get paid to do this stuff.
Like, that is disgraceful, man.
How about her?
Okay, Justin, pretty self-explanatory. Goodcock, Babcock. Something that's good gets the Goodcock. Something that's not so good gets the Babcock. Let's start with Tavares getting his 1,000 point, and obviously, Islanders fans, let him hear it.
Back to Nylander. Another shot incoming. The puck scores. Morgan Riley has tied it. And the Leafs have been given permission to empty the bench. That picture worth 1,000 points as it's a milestone night.
First of all, great call by Chris Cuthbert on the 1,000 point. But where are you at with the Islanders fans booing?
Well, before we get to that, I want to read out this tweet from Carlo Koliakov of TSN. Come on, hashtag Isles fans. I get you hate Tavares for leaving, but you could park the booze to honor the guy and cheer for him for accomplishing 1,000 points. Then you can go back to booing. Stay classy. No.
You're not having that?
No. They paid money to go buy a ticket to watch this game. They can do whatever the hell they want. Again, within reason, as long as you aren't abusing players, abusing coaching staff, abusing like that, or crossing a certain boundary. But booing is well within the lines and the realm of being a fan, which stands for fanatic. And of course, John Tavares was drafted by the Islanders, played a bulk of his career with the Islanders, scored a majority of his points with the Islanders, and then jilted them at the altar. Not jilted them at the altar, but kind of divorced them and went to Toronto. And of course they're going to boo him. So who cares if you got 1,000 points there? I'm sure Tavares understands that he's going to get booed every single time for the rest of his career in Long Island. And that just comes with the territory. John Tavares understands it. The team understands it. So why is everybody being so soft about it, right? It's sports. Guys get booed. Athletes get booed. Vince Carter got booed for how many years in Toronto? Right? How many players have we seen getting booed before? LeBron, like I mentioned all the time, Albert, had batteries thrown at him, had, the whole state of Ohio after him, right? Shohei Ohtani's probably going to get booed in Toronto for not picking the Blue Jays in free agency. He never even played for them, and he's still going to get booed, right? So what I'm trying to say is fans have the right to boo. Boo whoever the hell you want to boo. It doesn't matter. Whether it's 1,000 points, 1,000 career games, anything like that, you can boo him. That is totally fine. And Islanders fans are some of the toughest and some of the most passionate in the league. So to expect them to stop booing and cheer for a guy who scores 1,000 points, not only that, tied the game with 6 seconds left, is completely backwards to me. And I don't think that has any indication. There should be no validation to the statement whatsoever. If you want to boo him, boo him.
That might be the greatest way to start off this new segment.
Yeah.
That is the ultimate Babcock. Back ass backwards is what Justin Pooni just said. Listen, I like Carlo Koliakovo, and the thing I don't know. I think you forgot to mention it, but he played for the Leafs.
He did.
He was an NHL player, so I thought maybe if anyone would understand, it's a former NHLer. You can't tell fans what to do. And you mentioned the biggest point there is that they tied the game with just seconds remaining. Obviously, they were going to boo the team, and obviously boo John Tavares. They actually flashed it on the scoreboard on Long Island, so the fans knew exactly what was up. I'm sure they knew anyway. You could check social media and the guy's a point away or 2 points away heading into that game for 1,000 points. So I'm fine with it. Listen, fans can do whatever the hell they want. You cannot tell fans what to do, and you can't have this expectation that just because he's hitting 1,000 points and not many players have done it, that you should show some sort of appreciation. Absolutely not. I mean, you go back to, fans in Philly. I know this isn't Philly, but Long Island, not that far off. They can give it to their players.
Same type of
fans
crowd.
in Philly booed Santa, and you made a great point. Blue Jays fans are going to boo Ohtani for not picking Toronto. So It's fine. Let the fans do what they want to do. I'm completely cool with it.
Yeah.
Honestly, when I go to games, I can be the same way.
Hey,
I gotta boo.
I go to Leaf games and I boo the Leafs openly when I'm.
But you hate the Leafs.
I don't hate them.
Come on. If you're going power rankings of teams you hate in the NHL, where do the Leafs sit?
Number one.
What are you trying to tell me? All right.
What a pretty big gap.
Let's talk about another fan, but also a parent of one of the hockey players in the Toronto Maple Leafs, Mr. Paul Marner. His face was trending all over social media after that Islanders game. If you're watching the video version, you can see the clip right now. So that's John Tavares' dad jumping up and down after Tavares tied the game to get his one. Oh, he didn't tie the game. Excuse me. It was Riley who tied the game Tavares got his 1,000 point. And then Paul Marner right beside him stands up and he's dead serious. Like he's pissed off that the Leafs had to wait this long to tie the game and now they got to go to overtime against the Islanders. I'm going to go huge Babcock to Paul Marner. Come on, you got to smile a little bit. No, the team just tied the game. It's late. It's the dad trip. You probably have a few drinks in you and you're going to pop up that angry. At least look over at Tavares' dad and shake his hand, give him a hug, which he probably did. But there's a bit of a backstory with Paul Marner. I think he's your typical old school type of hockey dad. Would you call it off air?
Helicopter parent?
Helicopter parent? I don't even really know what that means. But back in the day when Marner was a kid, CBC The National, they decided to do a profile on Mitch Marner and Paul Marner. And here's one of the clips from that profile.
And just listen to what Paul Marner has to say. He's talking to his son, not the ref.
You better get skating, Mitch. I swear to God.
The final.
I love that. You better get skating, Mitch. To be fair, I know we're kind of picking on him right now. After that, he was like, great game, Mitch. What are you going to tell Mom? He was really nice to his son. Sure, he's a great dad, but that kind of tells you what type of dad he is. Hockey dad that Paul Marner is. I'm not surprised that he didn't smile.
Remember when Marner was negotiating his contract, the dad was quite involved in the contract negotiations. Apparently wanted his son to be the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs and all that. But look, come on, you know this guy. It's Mitch, and nobody else really matters to him, right? You could tell from that clip that he only cared about his son and getting his son to the NHL.
But hold on, maybe he was like half in the bag, right? He's with the dad. He's, when you have a few drinks and you've been sitting down for a long time, and then you pop up, you're like, whoa, I gotta keep a straight face. Maybe that's what was going on with Paul Marner.
But look, we know that Paul Marner. First of all, that CBC feature right there, I think I've watched like 100,000 times, and I've laughed every single time. It is hilarious. If you want to watch it, definitely watch it. But look, Paul Marner and all that, did it get blown out of proportion? Yes. Did the CBC News report and that kind of tie in perfectly? Yes. Do I think Paul Marner only really cares about his son and his son's well-being as he should? Right? Yes.
We've heard rumors before that he's been in the dressing room, that he's one of the dads who goes into the Leafs dressing room.
Yeah, he's a helicopter parent.
Yeah,
that's exactly.
Helicopter dad, even at the NHL
Mitch,
level.
If I was Mitch, I'd probably tell my dad, maybe settle down a little bit and get out of the locker room a little bit, Mitch.
I'm honestly surprised that clip hasn't made the rounds. Maybe it will now after we release this podcast. Oh, it has.
It has. I haven't seen it.
Has. Okay, let's get into some Goodcock, right? Some good things that are going on with the Toronto Maple Leafs. You actually want to give some love.
Yeah.
To the Toronto Maple Leafs coaching staff.
I do, Albert. Wow. I want to give a good cock to the Toronto Maple Leafs coaching staff because, like we mentioned, going from an emotional kind of roller coaster in Long Island where tied the game late, lose in overtime, you have that emotional dip, and then you got to turn around and go play one of the best teams in the NHL in the New York Rangers the next night at MSG, and to come out with the type of energy they did. They scored after that. They had a very impressive first period, and that kind of set the tone for the rest of the game. And I kind of thought after the first period, okay, maybe we will see some dead legs and they'll kind of dip back down. And we kind of saw that in the second period, right? But that third period, they came back out and they closed that game out. So I want to give a kudos to the Toronto Maple Leafs coaching staff for getting their players ready to play, getting their players ready to compete against a very good team in the New York Rangers. And I think what they did and what they showcase is that they can be resilient and they have a bit of a bounce back factor with them. So kudos to Sheldon Keefe and the crew for getting the team ready for a big win last night in MSG against the Rangers.
My favorite is when you give all this praise and love to the Toronto Maple Leafs because I know how much it cuts you so deep, dude.
Hey, I'm a professional, man.
It cuts you so deep, but after this, you're going to throw your laptop against the floor. But the Leafs do deserve a ton of praise. They decide to go 11-7. They lose their top-line winger, Matthew Nyes, just before the game started. Yeah. Obviously, they're down defensemen. They're on their third-string goalie. The flu's going around the team. They're off an emotional back-to-back where they just lost in a game where, obviously, we just mentioned Tavares scored his 1,000 points. So you get the emotional high of tying the game late. Then you go low because you lose. Now you got to go MSG, play the best team or one of the best teams in the East. I think they're top of the Metro. The New York Rangers. Really good team.
They're tied for first in these.
And Keefe said it. I mean, the Rangers are a team that they score 4 goals a game. That's how good they are. Yep. And for the Leafs to go in there and put in that performance, they deserve a lot of credit. I'm going to go with Auston Matthews. I have a bunch of good cock here. I'm going to go with Auston. I'm going to go with Auston Matthews. You're going to hear a lot of giggles moving forward, especially during this segment. Dude, 4-point night. The guy's got 21 goals. He hasn't been that great. Stop laughing. Stop laughing at my good cock, okay? One thing I want to say about Auston Matthews, right? He hasn't been that great. He's been really good, but he hasn't been, I guess, what people expect him to be, to score 2 to 3 goals every single game. But what I've noticed, he's obviously healthy now, but he's playing with some bite. A little bit of bite. Not a lot, but
enough bite for he's got a
against
nice
Nashville, he threw the body around. Against the Rangers, I noticed him throwing the body around a bit more. He's like, I don't know if this is a great like analogy or metaphor or whatever, but he's like a dog that doesn't know how big he is. It's like a Saint Bernard. You know what a Saint Bernard is?
Yeah.
You ever watch the movie Beethoven from back in the day?
No, but I know what a Saint Bernard is.
Yeah, they're these nice, big, cuddly dogs, but if they really wanted to, they'd rip you apart. I feel like that's Auston Matthews. The guy's 6'3", he's 220, he's got everything. And I think if you want to separate yourself from Connor McDavid, if I'm Auston Matthews, and you want to be known as one of the best players in the league, if you can score 60 and throw the body around and be an aggressive player, I think that's what would separate Matthews from McDavid. I know that's a huge call, but I'm saying if he adds that element to his game, that's something that McDavid doesn't necessarily have.
Hold on. Did you just say that if Matthews throws the body more, he will become a better player than McDavid and separate himself?
Well, I also said if he's scoring 60 goals and doing that.
But okay, I just want to clarify because that's a bold statement you're saying.
It is.
The question to think that Auston Matthews is in the same stratosphere as Connor McDavid. That's very, very hot take from you, Albert.
It's not that hot of a take.
Bro, he's no.
How long have we been talking about the 2 best players in the world? The 3 best players in the world.
See?
Have been what?
You just changed it from the best 2 players in the world to the best 2
Okay,
players.
but how you rank them is McDavid number 1.
Clear cut.
And then it's Matthews or it's Draisaitl.
Yeah.
But that conversation's been going on for a long time. That's not a crazy hot take.
Let me ask you this right now, right? We're getting a little bit off topic here, but
that's fine.
I think Nathan MacKinnon this year is proving that he's a better player than Auston Matthews.
Right.
Would you take Nathan MacKinnon or Auston Matthews?
That's a tough question. Exactly. I don't know. I think I'd probably stick with Auston Matthews.
No.
I think so.
That speed on MacKinnon, no chance.
Yeah, different types of players. Yeah. But like I said, if he scores 60, on pace for 66 right now, the second time he would score 60 goals, and he's also playing a power forward role where he's actually throwing the body and hitting, he doesn't necessarily need to do that every single game. But if he does it for the majority of the season, if he does it in the playoffs and at least make a run, you're starting to look at it in a different light. Right? Then you're like, well, okay, this guy's not just a skill guy. He doesn't just have a shot. He doesn't just have a knack for finding the back of the net. Mm-hmm. He has a full game to him now. He plays a complete game already. Now throw the body around and see what happens.
Look, man, I think we know what Matthews is. We've seen him for this long. He's an elite goal scorer. He's developed a nice 2-way game to him. But see him kind of pick up that physicality, I don't think that's going to happen. It's that part of your game it's within you. And like you mentioned, a Saint Bernard, he's got that dog in him. Yeah. He doesn't have that Doberman, that Rottweiler, that pit bull in him, right? He doesn't have that knack to his game.
But what does that even mean?
What do you mean? What does that mean?
That Doberman, that pit bull.
You're more aggressive.
So give me a comparison.
Right? Okay, so you look at Matthew Tkachuk, who's less skilled than him.
Okay.
Right? But Matthew Tkachuk has that tenacity, that aggression, that mean streak in him, right? Now, we talked about off camera how he might not drop the gloves with everybody, but he's throwing his body around. He's getting in the dirty areas, right? That's not a problem with him. Same with Brady Tkachuk, right? Those guys have that anger, that tenacity, that aggression with him, but Auston Matthews doesn't have that. Auston Matthews' skill set and his natural ability will be higher for sure, but the intensity factor, that's on him. That's something that comes from within, and I don't think it's just you can't flip the switch and then Auston Matthews turns into that. He is what he is, right? I don't think he in that mentality, makeup aspect of it, I don't think that's going to change from Auston Matthews.
No, and I think they're 2 different players. Like you got to think about Brady Tkachuk and Matthew Tkachuk's dad.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the power forward, right? That's the old school power forward. Yeah. Matthews probably won't be that. But I'm telling you, if this guy scores 60 again and he's doing what I just said, I'm considering him one of the best players, maybe the best player in the NHL.
He's got to keep pace with Brock Besser.
Oh, Brock Besser, 3 goals the other night.
There you go,
21 goals. What the hell's going on?
What am I saying? Now with Kyle Connor out potentially for 8 weeks, maybe I do shell some do-re-mi on Brock Besser winning the Rocket.
If Matthew stays healthy, I don't think anyone's coming close. I'll be honest with you.
Hey, Brock Besser's close and he's healthy right now.
For now.
I'm just saying.
Early days.
I want to give my good cock to the Leafs makeshift D.
Wow.
That's a whole...
Listen, you want to throw around some good cock, you got to throw it around.
Throw some good cock to the Leafs D. You know what I'm saying? I want to give credit where credit is due. The last couple of weeks we've been on this show, and I've been bashing Brad Treliving, saying that get off your hands and make a trade and fix this D because something's going to go wrong, and it's all going to fall apart. Well, it hasn't fallen apart yet, Albert, and we talked about it. That defense score stepped up last night, right? There was a chance where the Rangers scored 2 goals in the second period, and it's a 1-goal game. I kind of thought in my head, okay, are we going to see the unraveling here? And no, they did not. Their defense score stepped up, logged a whole lot of good minutes. I have some of the numbers here about some of the defense core minutes. Look, Simon Benoit played 12 minutes, but an effective 12 minutes, a +1, right? TJ Brody, 23 minutes. William Lagesson, 15. Max Lajoie only played 7. And then you had, of course, McCabe, Riley, and Timmins. And I want to talk about Jake McCabe. 20-plus minutes he played last night through that big hit. He's been kind of an unsung hero, I feel, for the Toronto Maple Leafs, playing very well. A guy who was brought in last year and then kind of, when the playoffs hit and all of that, he didn't play very well, and he was kind of a whipping boy. A lot of people said, oh, he's the new Jay. They got rid of Justin Hall, and then Jake McCabe's the new whipping boy. But I want to give credit to Jake McCabe. He's played very, very well. I still believe Brad Treliving needs to make a deal to insulate this defense group. What I've seen lately the last couple weeks has been very impressive, Albert. The goalies that they've lost and all of that, even against the Islanders, this defense core hasn't made a huge amount of egregious mistakes. They've played solid. And what do I always say? If your defense pairings, especially your bottom defense pairing, and quite frankly, all these guys on the Leafs right now generally cap out as a bottom 6, maybe a top 5 defenseman. If they're not making mistakes and you don't notice them, that is a good thing. Right? So credit to the Leafs defense core, credit to the coaching staff as well for getting these guys to buy into the system and not sheltering them, but trusting them enough to go out there and make the right plays, and then for the players to execute that as well. So kudos to the Leafs soft D.
I like that. I have another good cock, but we'll leave that till after the break. And it kind of goes on with what you're saying. I'm actually going to be praising somebody I've been heavily criticizing. Okay, I'm going to continue with the good. It's going off your last point with that makeshift D. I got to give some good to Brad Treliving. I know that. I see the face that you're making. Audio listeners, Justin's face just went crooked and he gave me the eyes. Like, what the hell are you talking about? You just criticized this guy for some of his signings and what he's doing. But I think I'm starting to see glimpses of how he wants this team to play. They're starting to play a lot more aggressive. It's more of a team game. I just mentioned Matthews throwing the body around. Nyes has been doing that. Jake McCabe lowering the boom. They're stepping up for each other more. So things are slowly changing. And I got to give him his props for this makeshift D, right? He signed Lagesson. He signed Benoit. He signed Lajoie. Why are you putting your hands up like that? What did I say?
Finish what you're saying.
He signed Lajoie. All of them in the offseason at a league minimum. And listen, they're not complete liabilities. Are they going to stick with this team moving forward? No. He even said it himself. He goes, we have guys playing minutes and in positions we don't necessarily want them to in terms of how long they're going to be doing it for because of the injuries. And he's going to have to address that. And I think he's trying to address that. And it sounds like he's going to go after a defenseman who can eat some top line minutes. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But I mean, so far so good. I almost feel like, and I said this a couple weeks ago, that the Leafs are slowly starting to carve out some sort of identity for themselves. And I think it took injuries for that to happen because they'd had to come together as a team to fight for each other, because if you're going to rely on Brody and Riley and McCabe to be your top 3 guys most nights, you're probably going to lose a lot more games than you win. That's not the case, though, because these guys are stepping up. And don't forget, he also signed Martin Jones. I mean, a hell of a third stringer. And this is one of the reasons why you sign a guy like that, obviously, right? If you have injuries or if Wall couldn't cut it or if Samsonov couldn't cut it, at least you can fall back on Jones instead of going with an AHL goalie. Now you got Martin Jones, who's got experience. He played 40-plus games for the Kraken. So for some of the signings he's made, it's starting to look pretty good. Bertuzzi's playing better. Domi's playing better. I still have to give him an F for Klingberg and Ryan Reeves at the moment, but I think I'm starting to change my tune when it comes to Brad Treliving. Early days, that can change. And by the way, I just want to say this. There's nothing wrong with changing your opinion. If you have a take on one thing early, doesn't mean it can't change moving forward. It's almost like what you say is what you say and you can't go back on it. That's not how things work at all. Not in sports, not in life. So I just wanted to put that out there.
You know what? If this whole sports media thing doesn't work out, you have a great future in politics, Albert.
Politics.
Oh my. Wow, you covered your basis on all of that.
I didn't cover basis.
Well, you know what, guys? You know what? If you change your mind, you're allowed to. You know what? You're allowed to.
Is there nothing? So let's just say, if you have an opinion, let's just say I'm on Rick Tocchet, right?
Yes.
When Rick Tocchet first came in,
right,
you can say, oh, no, I don't want to. You heard a lot of Canucks fans going after Rick Tocchet. And now Rick Tocchet is the flavor of the year because he's a good coach.
The flavor of the year and the coach.
And things are starting to change. So the take or the opinion you had on him early on,
right,
that can easily change because it's only natural.
Okay, Albert, but let me ask you this, right? You said yourself, right? You said yourself that Klingberg F, Reeves F, right? F sightings. We'll say what, Domi's a D plus, maybe now a D plus.
Sure, I don't know if I can grade them, but they're playing better.
Bertuzzi's been what, a C, average at best, right? He was an F before he's moved to a C. So I'm not a teacher. I don't know the averages and all of that. But when you look at the big money he spent, right, it hasn't really panned out as to what he expected, right? Then when you look at the fact that this team still can't make moves to acquire any defenseman because of the cap situation, because he decided to give John Klingberg that deal, a guy who now is on LTI who won't play again, who's yet to make a move to fix this defense core. Again, very nice makeshift, but we know this is not sustainable, right? Brad Treliving cannot be getting roses because he got the depth signings that somehow panned out for a couple weeks, right? Again, I think you have to look at it from a bigger perspective. Yes,
yeah, you have to.
Some of those guys, right, have worked out very well. The Lagusins, the Benoits, the Jones, right? They've played well in a small sample size, right? But when you look at it, you still have Reeves on the hook for a while. You still have Bertuzzi, Domi, and then Klingberg, who's just, well, that's a failure to be able. But you look at Domi and Bertuzzi, they haven't really worked out to what they're supposed to do, what they're brought in to do, right? I get it's early, but Albert, it's too. I think this is more to do with those other guys, those depth guys stepping up, is because of the coaching staff putting them in this position. Because if you ask Brad Treliving if he expected any of these guys to really play valuable minutes during any point of this season, he probably would have said no. So I disagree with you on that.
But at this point in the season, I'll give you Bertuzzi, I'll give you Domi. They need to be better. They have been better, but I think they need to even go up another level. I think you need more production from those guys. The Klingberg thing, we can always talk about another time because there's so much that you can really read into it. $4.1 million, the guy has a lingering injury, and why did they sign him instead of going after someone else at a cheaper cost, yada, yada, yada. Why do you pay Ryan Reeves that much money to play 8 minutes a night, to be scratched and to play on the fourth line? Almost makes no sense. But now looking back on it, these three signings of Benoit, Lajoie, Lagesson, and Martin Jones and net could be the most important signings of the Toronto Maple Leafs season moving forward. Because if you don't have these players, you don't have this goaltending right now, this can be a monumental collapse from the Toronto Maple Leafs. But it's not the case. And it's because those signings and obviously the play of your top guys that are keeping this team afloat. If those players aren't there, who are you playing? There's nobody left. And think about who that third string goalie would be. Dennis Hildeby from the Marlies? Sure, he's playing well. He doesn't have any NHL experience. So I'm just saying, at this moment in time, we might look back on it like, wow, those signings really kept the Leafs afloat when it could have been an absolute disaster.
Well, time will tell. I just think that giving a guy credit for having these guys that were never really expected to do much come in and play admirably for, again, a couple weeks, you can't sway the pendulum because of the other messes that he's made. Those egregious mistakes, contract-wise, right, did not make up for the fact that some depth guys are playing better, right? You're still in cap, you're still in ability where you can't really make a trade because you have to have a team retain salary, right? So there's still issues there. So, again, I don't think that Brad Treliving deserves any credit until he
you got to give him some props. You have to. I'm not saying he's off the hook for everything that he's done.
Right.
I could just say I could see the way the team is playing. They're carving out an identity, and he signed some players at reasonable deals, which the Leafs need to do, and they've been doing all along because they're up against the cap, and it's working out. So you got to give Treliving his props. I know you don't want to, Pooni, but sometimes you got to.